Now, if you weren't doing a magic show with Teller, what would you be doing? And I said, well, children, I would be in prison.
This kept you focused.
There's nothing else I know how to do.
Right.
I have no other skills.
Yeah.
Your dad has no other skills at all. This is what I love.
Welcome everyone to the School of Greatest podcast. We've got a non-changing interview with Penn. Good to see you, man. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
We're shaking hands for those of you who haven't got the video.
Yeah, thank you for being here, man. You've been
good to talk to a tall guy.
I know.
Good to talk to a tall guy.
Usually I go way down in my chair and I go like this, so I'm on like so I'm not,
you do the opposite of what Stern does.
Oh,
Stern puts
really?
himself on a
pedestal.
High, yeah, he's up a little high.
And he's like 7 feet tall or something. It seems like
he's about a half inch shorter than me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're 6'6"?
I'm about 6'7".
Wow.
He's right about 6'6".
But you've leaned out a lot in the last.
I've leaned out.
Number of years.
I've lost 110 pounds over the past since I was 60, and I'm 64 now.
Wow.
On my 60th birthday is when
I feel like that's one of the hardest things for someone to do as they get older is to change a habit that you're so used to doing.
Yeah, we're nothing but habits, and it's a very powerful thing. There's a Buddhist metaphor that we are all riding an elephant, and we have this little bit of control we can do, and there's all the stuff that's below the conscious level that they use as the elephant metaphor. It's very, very hard to kind of trick the parts of your mind and your body that have an agenda. Momentum is tremendously powerful, and your mind will play an awful lot of tricks to keep things stable for good reason.
Keep it going the same way.
There's good evolutionary reasons for that.
How long were you?
And there's wicked evolutionary reasons for being fat. I mean, that's a really, really good idea if you're living on a savanna, which is all we've ever done.
Right.
We haven't. The amount of time since agriculture is 10,000 years. So you've got a million years that we're set for doing one thing.
The human brain of conditioning to store food.
Conditioning, but also just evolving for that.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose. For a billion years, the biggest problem every living thing had was too few calories.
Wow.
And then for half a century, one species in one geographical area, and only some of them have the problem of too many calories. It's a problem that really is not going to be solved in a few generations. And same with information. We now in one issue of the New York Times, we have more information than somebody 300 years ago would have gotten in their whole life.
Incredible.
One issue, and so to be able to process that much information, it's like going through that many calories. You get a cheeseburger and CNN, you're dealing with all sorts of stuff that no primates ever dealt with.
How do we handle it all?
We're badly, but the remarkable thing is, with all these breathtaking challenges, things have continued to get better at an astonishing rate, and also the rate at which they're getting better is also improving. I mean, one of the real head scratchers scientists have is trying to figure out why, even since the 80s, violence is just going away.
It's going away since
we
the
live
80s.
in the least violent time that's ever existed on the planet.
Why do they make it seem like it's more violent?
It's the information.
Yeah.
I mean, most studies say that we're pretty much geared to deal with 200 or 300 people. We can imagine barely 200 or 300 people. And if we still had the information for 200 or 300 people, you would probably not know anybody who'd been shot. You wouldn't know anybody that had been mugged. You wouldn't know anybody that won the lottery. You wouldn't know any of those things. And now that we have this information, it's very, very hard to watch, which is why I don't, to watch television footage of some atrocity and remember that it didn't happen to you or anyone around you. I mean,
Right.
school shootings, as horrific as they are just going down. It's a tiny amount, but the coverage is so much greater.
Yeah.
That it's my daughter at her school, I was so angry. They were giving them drills on how to deal with an active shooter, and I said to my daughter, "Mox, are they giving you drills on how to deal with a bear attack? Because you are a little more likely to be attacked by a bear in your school than you are a school shooter. Most adults want to take care of you. No one's trying to hurt you. You are very, very safe. And here are these mathematically challenged adults who don't have the strength to let their children know the simple fact that their children are safe." You would think that giving your children the information that they're safe would be a joyous thing, but people don't find it sexy.
Why do we live in so much fear when we're safer than ever?
I mean, I don't want to be cynical, because I'm not, and I don't think there's a conspiracy, but there's a lot of money to be made by attention, and fear is one of the quickest ways to get attention, which is why you have the all the shock quotes and shock headlines.
Right.
There's a nice rule of thumb: if a headline has a question in it, the answer is no.
Right.
Are plastics killing us? No. Almost any question. It's very funny. It's I forgot whose law it is. It has a colloquial so-and-so's law that if there's a question in the headline, the answer is no. But since I read that a few years ago, it's bore up very well.
That's good. What are you most proud of in the last few years about yourself, something you've done, something you've created, something you haven't done?
I don't know. I think I'm proud of being a little kinder. I think that's important. I think I'm...
Were you not always so kind?
Yeah, well, there's an Elvis Costello line, "I don't mean to be mean much anymore." I don't think I was ever, especially in the waters in which I swim of comics and so on, I don't think I was at the high end of mean. But I think for regular humanity, I was probably in the middle, and I'd like to go the other way. I think it's all that matters now.
Why is it something that matters to you now at 64?
We've come to a place. No one knows the reason, but there seems to be more of a sense of thinking that people are evil instead of thinking they're wrong. Somehow we don't use the word wrong very often, and we use all sorts of other vilifications. So someone who disagrees with somebody politically is more apt to say that that person has nefarious, unpleasant motives, than to simply say they're wrong. And I mean, you look back on Martin Luther King or Gandhi and all they accomplished. Very rarely, you can find a few cases, but they're rare. Does Martin Luther King ever say anything against the people? He doesn't talk about racist bastards or people keeping us down, or doesn't talk about that. All he's talking about is, could we get the same deal? And you just don't see that kind of rhetoric. The rhetoric tends to be, I think maybe because we don't have anyone who's as good a speaker. You know, it's easier to write stuff that's full of hate than stuff that's full of kindness. It's just easier.
And anyone can do it on social media quickly behind a faceless...
Yeah, you know, if you'd have talked, well, I tried to take blame for this, and a tech person that I know said, well, it was everybody. You know, I believed, and I even spoke about it at MIT and other places. I believed in the 90s, early 90s, that when we had, when the gatekeepers were gone and anybody could talk about anything without someone editing coming in, I really believed that the egalitarian quality of that was going to be wonderful. And I did not see any downside to it at all. And no one else did. I mean, it's very hard to find writing at that time where someone says that. And it turns out there's a big downside to it. It turns out that having things, usually it's blamed on Twitter, but having a situation where what gets the most attention is something that's shocking can lead to it leads to almost a militarization of sloppy thinking. Weaponizes it, weaponizes shock, and we're seeing that a lot, and it's just an adjustment. The danger of that is, there's a great Bob Dylan line, "Fearing not, I become my enemy in the instant that I preached." But it's very hard to explain that there are some problems with Twitter and information without actually saying things are getting worse, because you have to remember that while this is happening, everything is getting better. I mean, there are fewer people. This is an astonishing fact. There are fewer people starving today than there were 100 years ago, and that's not percentage. That's actual numbers. And when you realize the population is more than doubled, it's phenomenal.
Right.
And most of our improvements have been in developing countries, mostly Africa, India, China.
Yeah, food, water, education, and all these things are available.
You've got the number of girls going to school now.
It's exponential from
huge,
20, 30 years ago. Yeah.
And girls going to school is a really good indicator of everything else good.
Yes.
The more girls that go to school, fewer people are starving, better children are cared for, better prenatal care.
Economy's better,
everything.
Less early pregnancies, all these
everything.
things.
All that stuff just happens. It's one of those, we don't know whether it's cause or effect, but those things happen. So things are good.
That's good.
And that's one of the most radical, unpopular things you can say, is that just things are going better.
Yeah.
Because people try to misrepresent that often as complacency and not caring. And it's actually quite the opposite. You can care very much about one person while saying 6 people are not suffering that were before. That's an easy thing to do.
Right.
If anything, it puts more attention on taking care of the problems we still have.
Sure. So, one of the problems that you had, it sounded like, was your weight. Now, how did you trick yourself or change your momentum, change your mindset around it to actually stay committed to it?
I've thought about this a lot, and I get asked about this a lot. And we don't really have access to what the real truth is. We make up stories that are close, but I was wicked fat and wicked sick from being fat.
Taking lots of medications, right?
High blood pressure, which is, they try to pretend is genetic, but seems to not be.
Yeah, it's not.
You
don't have high blood pressure now, right?
What's that?
You don't have high blood pressure?
Actually, I do still a little, but that's because
stress and working.
No, 50 years of a bad diet will clog you up a lot. So the people that change diets phenomenally, the improvement is 10, 15 years. It's not instant, because you've got all this shit to clean out of your system. But I was in the hospital, and everybody thinks that there's epiphanies that happen in the hospital. I don't believe anything anyone says in the hospital on New Year's Eve or right after they come. I don't believe anything they say then. And for me, it was all 3 simultaneously.
Yeah.
That's not true. But so I was in the hospital, and my doctor had said that they were going to have to do a stomach operation to give me the
surgery,
weight. And because I didn't want to argue, I said, okay, but let's see how the next few months go. And then I got out of the hospital, and there was no sort of epiphany. I began doing well, I'll eat a piece of fish, and I'll eat a little bit less, and I'll exercise. And then a friend of mine, Ray Cronice, who I call Cray Ray, Ray Cronice happened to come backstage, and he's a NASA guy that I knew from NASA. And He'd been really interested in weight stuff. And the sentence that was said that completely changed me was, he was talking a lot about diet. And I said, well, could you help me lose 30 pounds? The doctor said I should lose 30 pounds, and then they could keep my blood pressure under control with medication. And he said, why wouldn't you go for like over 100? 30 pounds is nothing. And I said, well, I don't know, to lose that much, could I do that easily? And he said, no, it'd be really, really hard. And I realized later, it wasn't at that moment. The way you tell the story, it's at that moment. But I realized that I've never enjoyed moderation, and I've never enjoyed easy. I don't even respect people who have moderation. I don't even have that kind of. I don't think it's equanimity. I don't think it's. I don't think it's a positive quality. People do not celebrate walking up a grassy slope. They celebrate, climbing mountains. And I realized that everything I'd enjoyed doing had been difficult. And here I was trying to change my diet in really easy ways. Instead of having 3 ounces of meat instead of 10 ounces of meat, and have a little more vegetables on your plate, and get a smaller plate, and do 15 minutes of exercise.
It's not gonna do much.
Everything says that. Everything says moderation. And there's even all these very deeply ingrained myths that you can't lose weight quickly, you have to lose it slowly, and fad diets and all of this. And Cray came in and said, this is going to be really hard. This will be as hard as, getting your name on a theater in Vegas. And I said, hey, now we're talking. Now we're talking about fun.
Speaking my language.
About fun. And I hadn't realized that about myself. I should have been so aware of that about myself. It seems like bedrock to who I am, but it never affected lifestyle. So I did very extreme stuff. I am a very strong skeptic, a very strong atheist, and so is Cray Ray. And Cray Ray said, there's all this cult stuff that really works. So although we know this is bullshit, we're going to do some of it.
Right.
So from now on, you don't talk to anybody about what you eat at all, ever. It's complete secret. From now on, you do everything I say all the time. We're going to jack into your cult stuff just to lose the weight and change the habits.
Right.
And we know it's not true, but we're going to go with it. We're going to play along with it like we're watching a movie. And he said, 50% of what I'm saying to you is bullshit.
Yeah.
But we don't know which 50%. We're working on it.
Right.
We're doing studies. We don't know yet. We'll find out more in 5 years, but sorry, it's now.
Do it all. Yeah, do it all.
So I did a mono diet for 2 weeks.
What does that mean?
Mono diet means eating one food, and the one we chose was potatoes.
Only one food all day?
Yeah, because it was funny.
Right.
Also because it was kind of a fuck you to the paleo people who talk about how bad potatoes
starches,
are. Starches. Just eat potato. And what you're doing with that, what you're doing with a mono diet, and there's actually a good amount of science. It could have been rice, could have been anything. But what you're doing is you have then eliminated yourself from the food culture.
Yeah.
You're just going to eat
options.
potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no options. You've also teach yourself something about hunger. Because I had never experienced hunger. I experienced cravings, which are very, very different.
Probably all the time,
Hunger's a different feeling in your throat, If you have a desire for a certain food, you're not hungry. You're craving.
You're salivating.
Yeah. But if you want a hamburger, you're not hungry. If you want anything, you're hungry.
You're craving if you want a hamburger, yeah.
Yeah, if
pizza, yeah.
But if you want a potato, then you're hungry.
Sure.
If you want pizza, then it's advertising.
It's good marketing.
Salt, sugar. So you do 2 weeks of that, and it's amazing. There's physiological changes that are astonishing because you're having so much less salt. When I say potatoes, I really do mean potatoes. I don't mean mashed potatoes. I don't mean fried potatoes. I mean
Cold.
nothing whatsoever. No, nothing whatsoever added.
Just a cold
and
potato.
nothing subtracted.
Wow.
So you can have it hot,
Okay,
but
gotcha.
baked, boiled, any kind of potato, sweet potato,
no
anything.
olive oil, no salt, no.
Not a bit of pepper, not a bit of salt,
Wow.
nothing, just that. And also no schedule. That's really important. Not breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Whenever you want.
Just whenever you want. Yeah. And I would say to him, can I eat any amount? He said, sure. Why don't you overeat?
Just should be sick.
Just go overeat potatoes. Do that for me. Do that. I want to see it. I want to see what it's like to overeat potatoes because I've never seen it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, there you can get a lot of calories from potatoes. He goes, sure. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sit down. Eat them all. Actually, we'll buy you 15 pounds.
Yeah, big
finish those
bag
up
of-
today. And so for 2 weeks, I ate potatoes. And at the end of that, it was amazing how billboards got disgusting. Other people eating sloppy food got really disgusting to me. Also, you get so many nutrients from potatoes. Your protein, everything are all there. So you're healthy, but you are operating at a huge calorie deficit. So because you can't eat that much. You just can't eat that much potato. No matter how much they'll tell you potatoes are full of starch and make you fat, yeah, to eat 1,000 calories of potatoes a day is wicked hard.
Hard.
So if you figure that, I don't do calorie counting, but if you figure when I was wicked fat, I was eating, 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, and I immediately popped down to 800, you start losing, and of course a lot of this is water, a lot of this is salt, but you start losing 3 or 4 pounds a day.
Wow.
It's astonishing. And you actually feel different, and you get this. And then, over the next 3 months,
So 2 weeks, you're down 30 pounds already.
not 30 pounds.
20 pounds, 15, 20 pounds.
But in 2 weeks, you're down, 20, 20.
You got a lot of weight to lose, though.
Yeah. And so a lot of that's false, but it's down. And then you start adding things in very, very slowly. And there's a moment that's so fascinating. And no one believes me. No one believes me except, I've had 5 or 6 dozen friends who have done the same thing. And you tell them, day 14, you're going to have an ear of corn. And the ear of corn you're going to eat after 2 weeks of potatoes is going to be the best food you ever had.
Ever.
And the great thing is, and I have a friend, and I do not think he's kidding in any way. He believed he had been pranked. And he believed that we had put salt, sugar, and butter
all
onto
over the corn, yeah.
And we had hidden it somewhere. And he absolutely was sure of it. Because you that
So
first
sweet.
bite, you go, man! First of all, it's like candy. It's like theater popcorn.
Wow.
It's the most intense food ever. And what you've done is I don't know why, second person. I've been slathering my taste buds in my body with salt, sugar, and fat for 50 years, 55 years.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, they got 2 weeks to just go, we're not doing that anymore. And I actually got to taste corn. And I was saying stuff later like, I remember 3 weeks later going, man, celery is salty. And he goes, yes, celery is really salty. Nobody knows it.
Wow.
Because we're having so much salt. And then the number that matters is over 3.5 months, closer to 4. Over 4 months, I averaged, and the word we're underlining there is averaged, 0.9 pounds a day.
Wow.
0.9
4
pounds
months.
a day, which means you get all these psychological effects that are shocking. You get mirror shock.
You see yourself like, whoa.
The first time you walk by a mirror and don't recognize yourself, and it happens because you're losing weight really fast. You also get these weird Superman feelings because if you're losing 6-7 pounds in a week, taking 6-7 pounds off your shoulders is noticeable. And they found from studies that the faster you lose weight, the more likely you are to keep it off.
Wow.
Which is contrary to what a lot of people say. And the other thing is that during that 3 or 4 months, not allowed to exercise.
At all.
At all. Well,
you're walking around, you're living life.
And it's amazing how you fight against that. You go, can I just run from my car to the theater?
Burn a little more, yeah.
No, just because you want to feel it. You feel so great. And you just don't want to be bodybuilding.
Wow.
Which is really funny because one of the quickest ways to gain weight is to eat a lot of frequent meals of high protein and exercise a lot, which is precisely what they're getting people to do. So I lost that weight. I have rebounded some. I mean, over the 4.5 years, I put up back on 20 pounds a little bit. I did some playing around with fasting, but I feel so much better. I'm off almost all the drugs.
Wow.
And I became totally vegan.
Right now, no meat.
No animal products. And the really funny thing is that I became vegan strictly for health reasons, and scoffed at the idea of being an ethical vegan. And then about 2.5 years in, 3 years in, after you've stopped eating animal products, you're no longer trying to resolve your cognitive dissonance with eating animal products, because no one feels good about factory farming, nobody. And it became an ethical thing. I read Peter Singer and the philosophers who talk about compassion for animals. And I was bothered by PETA, who sometimes equate what we're doing to chickens to the World War II Holocaust and stuff like that. And I was so offended and appalled by that. And then I realized that if you were to do some sort of metric, let's say that, the suffering of 1 million chickens adds up to 1 human being. Let's just say that, make that up. Still, if you don't hurt those 1 million chickens, you've decreased suffering.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the ratio is, less suffering is good. So my family, my children, 13 and 14, it's very, very difficult with their friends and stuff to get them to do any sort of vegan diet. But we also know from studies that just what I'm doing makes a huge influence on them, although it may not be right now. Of course, right.
So,
I'm still involved in that, in giving money to that. But
do you think you'd ever go back to eating meat? Is there ever a time?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I'm making stuff up now. I don't really know.
Right.
I don't really know this, but the microbiome. We have more cells that are foreign to us than we do cells of ourselves. There's more stuff in our
bugs
gut.
all over us, inside of us. Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that they have found, and this is a brand new science. We've all been thinking about this for 20 years. Brand new science, but the flora that lives in our gut, the fauna that lives in our gut, sends hormones and stuff to our brain. So the weird thing is that I was sure that although I would eat carefully, that every few weeks I would go out and have a steak and stuff. And Gray Ray said to me, yeah, sure, you're going to do that, no doubt, but just for 3 months you're not going to. Then you're going to go back to eating pizza and all that shit. Don't worry about it. But for right now, let's do it right.
Yeah.
And you go 3 months without any animal products at all.
You feel good,
and
probably.
your microbiome changes, and the hormones change, and you don't have the desire. You would have never been able to convince me that I would be able to look at a steak and just go, ugh.
Really?
And I don't mean at any sort of intellectual level, or I mean at a physiological level, just going, that's just not something I eat. It's so strange that, and I thought that cheese.
It's the best thing ever.
Best thing in the world.
Oh, man.
And then it took like 3 years, and now I look at cheese and kind of go, boy, that's milk that's gone bad, and milk is bad to begin with. I don't want to. Yeah. It's kind of like that. Yeah. Well, if you go to Japan, cheese is a part of their diet, and a 1950s resident of Japan would have had the same reaction to cheese as a 1950s United States resident would have had to raw fish. It was the same kind of thing, But so now I am strictly vegan.
Wow.
But vegan is the ethical part of it. The dietary part of it is really 2 words. You know, I wrote a whole book called Presto about my diet and how I'm losing the weight. And the whole book can be summed up in 2 words, which is whole plants. And the word whole is really important there because that includes extremely low salt, sugar, and fat.
Yeah.
Because olive oil is not whole. That's not a whole plant. You know, you can eat any amount of sugar you want, but make sure it's in fruit.
Right. Sure.
Because there is a limit, although it seems to me to be huge, of how many blueberries you can eat. I can eat enough blueberries to fill my head. I can eat that many blueberries. I can eat that many pomegranates. But that's nothing compared to the amount of sugar you can eat, just in like that.
Wow.
So, and I also feel really good. And this is something, you know, that so embarrassing, you know, being an atheist. I don't have any sort of dichotomy of soul and physical. I believe that our mind is our brain. I believe that at a very deep level. And even though I believed that, thought I understood that, I was still shocked at the emotional changes in me from my diet changing.
Wow.
Now, obviously, if you're an atheist and you believe everything's material, then that's but apparently I didn't. Because I always thought there was me and then the food was separate. But now I realize
that you're connected to the food.
I got happier.
Wow.
I got kinder. I got more polite. I had more fun with my children. All this stuff just happened that was clearly tied to diet. I mean, Dustin's known me well. You saw changes in me that were totally separate from my body. They were totally emotional changes. You know, it's also very different when your children come in and say, you know, you want to play, and you know you want to, and you know it'd be good, and you kind of push yourself to do that, and being able to just jump up and not think about it. Those are different things too, you know.
Wow.
So it was a big change and really nice.
It's amazing. And you talk about being an atheist a bunch. I read that you read the Bible when you were younger, and that's what influenced you to be an atheist?
I try to. I get bored, but I try to always be reading the Bible a little bit. I try to be well
Even
versed
now?
in it. Yeah. I always keep it on my Kindle and on my phone. I look through when there's references. I always check them out, and people are talking about it. Yeah, I went to when you're an atheist, there's this silliness that people say, you know, Christians must have treated you really bad. I'm so sorry for how you were treated. And I go, no. The problem was Christians treated me too good. I was treated very, very well. I'm from a extremely happy family with a mother and father and a sister who treated me perfectly. And I went to the First Congregationalist Church in Greenfield, Massachusetts, which was full of wonderful people. We had a tremendous pastor. And I went to a youth group.
Wow.
And during youth group, I took it very seriously. And the pastor asked us to, you know, read parts of the Bible. I read the whole Bible and came back and said, you know, I really don't like the anti-family stuff. I really don't like the violence. I really don't like the slavery. I really don't like the disrespect. I really don't like the way the Old Testament God is portrayed. I don't like Jesus speaking bad about the family. I don't like any of that stuff. And then that led me to other critiques. And finally, the pastor said, you know, and he said this, it's very hard to tell this story with the right tone, because he said, you know, maybe you don't need to come to youth group anymore because you're doing a better job at convincing the other children to not believe in God than I am on the other side. But that's so easy to present as he threw me out. He didn't. It was all very nice. And I remained friendly with him. I think if you take children and take away their fear and bathe them in love, you have a little more trouble keeping religion. Because I didn't have, I mean, my dad, who was a Christian until the day he died, we maintained a wonderful relationship with my dad. Forgive me, I want to prepare myself and phrase this so that I don't break down and cry. But my dad said to me, you know, it's going to be so hard after I'm dead to convince God to bring you into heaven. But I'll tell you, I'm going to do it, no matter what it takes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And my dad would always say to me, you know, what bothers me, Penn, is you're such a good Christian. I would say, Dad, it's that believing in Christ thing that's really important. He forsaketh me and gained the world. It's all there. It's written. You go, no, but you do everything right, and that's got to count for something. I said, it doesn't. The book said it doesn't.
Wow.
But my dad and I would, he remained, you know, my dad didn't get that memo about dads doing conditional love. My dad's love, and my mom's too, was completely unconditional, and they were fabulous, and the people of the church were fabulous, and so therefore, I went strictly to the dogma. If I had gone with how Christians treated me, I would be the most hardcore Christian you've ever seen. It's strictly intellectual with me, and you know, I'm friends with Donny Osmond. You know, when you talk about this, you know, famously a Mormon, and I'm friends with Glenn Beck, famously a Mormon.
I've had Glenn on here, yeah.
And I talk to them about the fact that, you know, I agree with them on most everything. It just happens I don't see any evidence for God.
Yeah.
And that was the way I was with my dad. My mom, in her later years, as is very common, became atheist. And my sister in her later years became atheist as well. But my dad toed the line.
Wow. So why don't you see any evidence for God?
You've stated that backwards. It's, you know, the question would be, where is the evidence
Gotcha.
for God? Because you can't prove a negative. And so, oh sure, I mean, any sort of evidence of God would be welcome, and I'd love to hear more about it. I mean, you know, I was good friends with Christopher Hitchens, and I'm friends with Dawkins. Actually, all the, you know, four horsemen of the new atheism, I was buddies with, and yeah, you're always looking for that. You know, you have the problem with the prime mover. How did all this stuff get here? That's a really good argument, except once you've said God, you then have to explain God. So you've only moved it back 1 degree. You haven't explained it anymore.
Right. There's no way to prove it, is what you're saying. There's no like proofing system of
Yeah. We don't have it falsifiable. So I think, you know, if you want to get granular about it, it's not that we don't have any evidence for there being no God. There can't be. We don't. There's no way you can know. It's not that I know there's no God. It's that I don't think I know, and I also don't think anyone else knows. And that's the important thing. The important thing is not believing someone else knows. I believe that if someone else had evidence of God, they would have been able to present it well.
Right. Not where there's an argument always against it.
I think we would see. The problem is that physics has, and you know, and biology has presented a world that does not need a God to explain anything. I mean, you have your founding fathers, everybody before the middle of the 19th century that would be called atheist now was called deist, because they didn't have, you know, Jefferson. You know, I don't mean to try to sum up a brilliant man's theology, but Jefferson seems to have had this point of view that there was no interventionist God. God had nothing to do with us, but he might have started things rolling. But then Darwin comes along, and Darwin gives us, or Wallace, because Alfred Wallace had the idea kind of before Darwin, but Darwin popularizes the idea of evolution as we know it now.
Right.
And once you have that piece of the puzzle, you don't really need any other explanation. And then, of course, we come into Lawrence Krauss and why we have something instead of nothing. And you don't have to even go to string theory or multiverse. You can kind of have it subatomic levels. We do have things that can pop up.
Right.
But not knowing does not answer God. I don't know does not mean that the answer is God. As a matter of fact, all of science, all the revolution in science of the past 300 years, 400 years, can be summed up in those three words, I don't know. Because those three words were not said really before science. No king would say, I don't know. No religious figure would say, I don't know. You know, Copernicus, Newton, Darwin, they go, I don't know. And those are the most difficult and the most powerful words that someone can say. Which is why it's so odd that atheists often get the rap of being arrogant, whereas the atheist point of view is I don't know, and the people who sometimes call atheists arrogant are the people that say, oh yeah, there's a God and he cares a lot if I masturbate. Okay, so you're the center of the universe. Not only that, your penis is the center of the universe.
Right.
And yet the atheists are the ones that are arrogant because we say there isn't someone watching over us every second.
Wow. Right. Yeah. So it's not that you don't believe there's no God, you just don't know if there is.
Yeah, but when I say I don't know, you have to be, I feel I have to be careful. I don't know that there's a God. I mean, it's possible there's a God the same way it's possible that a fairy lives in my toaster. I mean, when I'm talking about possible, I'm talking about very, very, very unlikely.
Sure.
And if there were something we're going to call a God, the chances that it's Judeo-Christian seem to be really, because you've got this whole what some wit called the Mediterranean death cults. You've got those Abrahamic religions which give you Judaism, Christianity, and Muslims, and you have those all come from the same thing. They all have Abraham. They all have Abraham, and out of them come that one basic idea. And we now have it set up so that if one is true, the others are not. And once you,
so you're wrong, I'm right.
It's the problem with the wager, that you might as well bet there's a God, because if there's not, there's no harm, and if there is, you go to heaven. But that doesn't work because there's an infinite number of possible religions, and you could be believing in a God, and the God there really is, his one rule could be don't believe in that other God.
It's true.
And you have that very strongly, and we have to be very careful to be fair, because we so want to many people who identify as atheists want to make their arguments from the most extreme.
Yeah.
You make it from the terrorists.
Sure.
You make it from the evangelicals.
Right.
And that's really not fair.
Yeah.
Because the vast majority of religious people are good because the vast majority of people are good.
Yeah.
Out of 7 billion people on this planet,
most are good.
About 7 billion are good.
Yeah, exactly.
The people that are bad are just noise. They don't even show up in the data.
Right.
The number of people that actually try to do bad for other people, really hard to find.
Yeah.
I mean, I was homeless and hitchhiking for years, and the number of bad people I found, really hard to find. Even in jails are hard to find. People that are wrong would be 100% of the people I've met and myself. People that are wrong are very common. People that are evil or bad. The simple truth is I don't believe there's such a thing as evil.
Wow.
I just believe there's such a thing as mistakes and wrong.
Yeah. You talked about both your parents and having a very loving experience from both of them. Who was the most influential in your life, and what was the biggest lesson they taught you?
Well, Teller always says that Penn got his sense of humor from his dad and his balls from his mom. My mom and I were the same person. I mean, my mom was very old when I was born. She was 45.
Wow.
So I had a sister 23 years older than me. We're the only two children. So maybe I wasn't planned. It's possible they didn't say, let's have two children 23 years apart.
Wow.
Possible. So my mom was 45. And so I was a long-haired hippie freak at 17 with my mother that was a little old lady. Mm-hmm. And we had the exact same syntax in the way we spoke, the exact same opinions on everything. My mom and I got along so well. It was almost creepy. I mean, my mom and I would say the exact same things. And I was as close to my dad as anyone I know was close to their dads, but I was even closer to my mom.
Wow.
And it was very difficult for them. I mean, my mom was born in 1909. 1909 she was born, and then she went from seeing horse and wagon to a person on the moon, and she was then at the age of my age, you know, that I am now, in her 60s, early 60s. She then had to deal with someone who was, listening to rock and roll and growing his hair down his back and wearing eye makeup. Very hard, very difficult.
Yeah.
I still don't know how they did it. I don't know how I could do that. But I suppose there's a one-word answer, and that's love. And I think the most important lesson, at least in terms of how I deal with my children, is when we opened off-Broadway, Penn Teller opened off-Broadway, there's a tradition. It's not important anymore because print media isn't important anymore. But as late as the 80s, when we opened off-Broadway, there was a tradition where you'd have a party. There probably still is.
Yeah.
I'm just out of that circle. We'd have a party on opening night.
Yeah.
And the New York Times would come out at about 2:30 or 3 a.m. And you'd have the party near Times Square. Someone would run and get the paper, and they'd bring the paper in. They'd be reviewing the New York Times. And even as late as the 80s, the review in the New York Times could give you a really good hint of whether you had a hit, whether you had a hit or not. It was very centralized, the power. So they'd have a party, this really goofy thing where if they read the review, you all celebrate, and if they don't read the review, well, you're closing. It's as simple as that. So you have this awkward thing where you finish up the show at about 11, and then there's this 3-hour party where people, investors, have $1 million riding on it. And the performers have their whole career, and everybody's there. So it's very, very tense, but trying to pretend to be a party. And you're trying to pretend that you're celebrating what you just did, but you're really just wondering what's going to be said. Well, the New York Times came out. It was as we say, a blowjob. They just absolutely loved
Amazing.
Penn Teller. And it then meant that not only were our careers to take off, but also all the producers who were very new. They're still very successful producers.
Wow.
The most successful producer in New York, and our show was their first show. So my mother and my father were sitting with the producer. So this producer, man, his whole life is on this roll of the dice, man. His whole life. Of course, he would have done something else and been successful, but that night, it seemed like there's nothing else in the world to that guy. And so Richard's sitting there with my mom and dad, and the guy stands up, one of the investors, reads the review aloud. And it's, people are kind of in shock because it was so good. It was almost like
too good.
There must be something that's going to turn in here. Must be a final line that's going to say, but all that being said, they suck. And by the way, they're Nazis. Something at the final line. But that didn't happen. So our producer, who was so relieved, the relief is the strongest thing, even more than joy.
Right.
Turns to my mother and says, doesn't that make you proud of your son? To which my mother responded, Of course not. What's wrong with you? I've been proud of him the day he was born.
Wow.
You think that the New York Times makes a difference to how I feel about my son? And he went, oh no, and I didn't mean
Wow.
And it went on with the celebration.
Sure.
And the next day, my mom now there's billboards of her son in Times Square. There's, tickets are selling out like crazy. We're doing Saturday Night Live and David Letterman, and all this stuff is going on. The next day, we're walking through Times Square. My mom goes, that was just so sad when he turned and acted like there'd be some difference in the way I felt about you after a review in the New York Times. How could you feel that way? I said, Mom, he's got $1 million riding on it. That whole review comes out. He's not really picking his words carefully. He didn't mean anything about you not being proud of me. She said, well, I guess not. I guess he was really nervous, but that really shook me up. I said, Mom, there was a good review in the Times.
Yeah.
Things are going well
Let's
for
be
us.
happy.
She said, yeah, things are going great, and I'm very happy, and I am very proud of you, but from the day you were born.
Wow.
I said, yes, Mom, that's important. So whenever my children say to me, I got this good thing in school, or I did this well, you proud of me? And I said, no, from the day you were born.
That's cool.
And by the way, when you're 35 and miserable, suffering alcoholic who's on death row, I will still be proud of you.
Wow.
Just so you know.
Wow.
You take that to the bank. That's not changing. You don't have any power over that. There's nothing you can do that can ruin that.
Could you ever be disappointed in yourself?
Sure. I can be all those things,
Yeah.
but I've got to learn something from my mom.
Wow, that's cool. That's amazing. That's a great lesson. And what about your dad? Biggest lesson?
Yeah, same thing. Just my dad wasn't apt to be quite as articulate about that, and also being an American man, he was very comfortable saying I love you, very comfortable with his feelings, but might not be, I don't know, that's not true. I think it was just my mom was sitting closer to the producer. I think that may be all that was happening there.
Wow.
I'm trying to make a difference. I think it may be false.
That's cool lessons from your parents. I'm curious, what's the lesson you feel like you still want to learn about yourself to overcome? Something you feel like you haven't learned yet that you need to learn. Maybe it was, a few years ago, changing your health. Maybe it's patience,
I would like to learn to do things without ambition. I think that...
you seem like you've been a very ambitious person your whole life.
And I would rather be less so.
Why?
I think that things you accomplish with gentleness can have a certain kind of beauty that I've ignored. I always hit all my deadlines. I accomplish things. I get stuff done. And sometimes I think that that can be used as a cheat for not having a sweet, relaxed quality. I wish I were a little sloppier, a little less focused, a little less hard-ass. And I've been doing a lot of things toward that, meditation and fasting and all those kind of old hippie stuff that I rejected. It's very odd that you'd be talking about wanting to be a little less productive, a little less focused. But I think that's exactly what I'm saying.
Wow. How long have you been doing, magic now? How many years has it been?
I've been working with Teller without a break, and that's important because you can talk about Mick and Keith Stones, and you can talk about how long they've been working, but they had 3 or 4 year breaks where they didn't talk to each other. Teller and I have been working continuously without a break, and really without even 10 days
of a break?
For 44 years.
44 years.
And we are the longest running headliners in the history of Las Vegas.
Wow.
Not just running now. We've been running in the same theater, the conveniently named Penn Teller Theater, for 19 years. And we've been in Vegas now for 24, 25, something like that.
Wow.
But it's been 44 years. I started working with Teller actually a little before I turned 20.
Wow.
And it's all I've ever done. And my children have said to me, now if you weren't doing a magic show with Teller, what would you be doing? And I said, well, children, I would be in prison.
This kept you focused.
There's nothing else I know how to do.
Right.
I have no other skills.
Yeah.
Your dad has no other skills at all. This is what I know. Yeah, we are, I believe Tommy Smothers, when the Smothers brothers retired, said, it's now Penn and Teller who've been working the longest.
Wow.
And that's the way that'll be for a while.
What?
But we do have Mick and Keith, and we do have, we would have had Siegfried and Roy, and then Roy got his head bit off by a fucking tiger. So that
Crazy.
took him out of the running. But I believe we're around. There may be a writing team or a songwriting team or something that I haven't been aware of. But for people on stage together, of course, this weird thing that happened. And I mean, you could write a sociological paper on this. But if you were talking about comedy teams and performance teams in the 50s and 60s, you would have been able to, without any study at all, you would have been able to, off the top of your head, name a couple dozen. Boom, boom, boom. Just bang them right out. From Martin and Lewis and Abbott and Costello and Laurel and Hardy, and you would just be banging Smothers Brothers, Burns and Schreiber, by Alan and Rossi, just banging them out like crazy. Now you ask somebody and they got Penn and Teller.
And what else? That's it.
And then they try to do stuff like Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, but they don't perform.
Yeah.
It gets very, very hard. You've got.
Everyone wants to be their own thing, probably.
It's
now,
very
so.
strange. It's very strange. I remember once made me laugh so hard. A woman was interviewing me. I guess we could figure out the year if we wanted to, but it must have been the early 90s. And she called me up to do an interview and said, I used to work for people, then I worked for us, now I'm working for self. I said, well, that's all you need to know about our culture.
That's funny.
Went from people to us to self.
That's funny.
But it's very funny because the idea of a partnership started having words like codependence as pejorative words started sneaking in on partnerships. And partnerships can be very, very powerful. And the codependence becomes really interesting because there's stuff that I might have ended up being good at that I have no skills in at all because Teller's so good at them.
Right.
Because when we started, when we were young, if one of us was a little better at something, they just did it.
You do that, I'll do this.
Yeah. So there's all this time that I don't know how to do that because Teller's good at it. So you can almost look. We didn't start out. People talk about how, boy, you two are amazing because your strengths and weaknesses fit together perfectly. We didn't start out that way. You develop that. It's like, I can't do that anymore.
Right.
With me, with Teller too, it's that we never could. When you're in your early 20s, you're learning what you're going to do, and if they put you on a track where you're not, and you see that, you see that in sports, right? I mean, guys who are in high school, professional sports figures, are always the best at single thing in their high school.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, they can't play those other sports.
Right.
They become,
specialized.
that.
Yeah.
And you see that in theater too. You see people who are, tremendous. When they were in high school, they are comedy and drama and writing and directing and producing and acting. They can do everything. And then 15 years later, they only direct soap operas.
Yeah.
And those are the skills they have. Everything else has fallen away.
Is there anything you wish you would have done differently over the last 44 years? Or
No, it's all been perfect.
Yeah.
My life has been, I don't know. There's one of the things that I think one has to do for, self-worth is to find a way to enjoy where you are now, and you can't spend too much time. It's useful to have embarrassment and regret so you don't do them in the future, but there's only a certain amount that's useful.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I mean, everything. Every single thing I would do slightly differently.
Really?
But being here now, I'm also completely happy with it. I mean, both those things are going to be true.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If you look back and said, should you have written a better clause in your contract off Broadway so you'd be prepared for Broadway? Well, yeah. Should I have bought, should I have invested all my money in Apple when it first started?
Yeah.
Probably should have done that.
Yeah.
Should I have bought Microsoft at the time when I might have been able to own 10% of it? Probably. That would be a good idea. Should I have paid more attention to friends of mine who were gay and getting sick from AIDS earlier on? Yeah, could have done all that.
Yeah.
It is the argument, of course, that we have against psychic phenomena, which is if there are psychics, if psychics are real, if they could do it. The question is, what were you doing on September 10th, 2001? And if the answer is you weren't trying to help, you go to jail now.
Wow.
Every psychic has to go to jail after 9/11. Oh, you knew the buildings were going to go down? Okay, go to jail.
Yeah. Right.
Those are your choices.
Wow.
You're either not psychic or you go to jail.
Yeah.
There's just so many things. You can do. But I'm going into shtickle instead of really answering your question. I would be even nicer to Teller. I look
Were
back
you mean
and say,
to him?
no, not particularly, but we both we both treat each other better now than we used to.
That's good.
But that's just age.
Yeah,
it's just age.
Maturity and experience.
I would have been less careful with money.
Less careful. What do you mean?
Well, Teller and I were so frugal, which is one of the reasons we're here now.
Right.
When we would sign, when other people would sign a contract, they would go out and buy a car. When Teller and I would sign a contract, we would go out and have coffee and a donut each.
And celebrate.
One donut each. That was our celebration because we saw so many of our peers
go broke. And yeah.
So we were able to have ups and downs. I mean, that was the thing that was so odd. It was 84, 85, if Glenn were here, he'd tell me, that we hit off Broadway and became what everybody considered successful. But what nobody knew was for street performers and for fairs and for the circuit we were on, we were really successful.
Right.
I mean,
you were crushing
at a very different level. And we were also very prepared to live our whole life that way.
Wow.
We had no intention of the success we've had now. Our sights were always very low, and we accomplished our goals within 2 years of working together.
Wow.
And we're happy to go back. My dad was a jail guard who then retired to become a numismatist, which is his big dream. And he had his own little coin shop and did everything. He was very happy. But to retire at 50 with a 5-year-old son and start a new career took a great deal of bravery. Although, not as much bravery as being a jail guard and never bringing home any anger or discomfort to
That's
the family.
crazy.
It wasn't until I was 25 that I went, wait a minute, you had a shitty job. Because he would, he's always happy, always smiling, came home happy. And and he went, oh yeah, we don't need to talk about that.
Wow.
It wasn't a good job. I was glad to have left it. But Dad, was it terrible?
Wow. You don't want to talk about it, yeah. It's pretty dark in there.
My dad was as light and sunny a person as you could ever find.
Wow.
When he was told late in life he was going to be going blind, he was depressed for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and said, "Gotta find a way to get a white cane for the front of my car so I can still drive."
Wow.
I mean, that's where
cool.
His optimism was.
That's cool.
I think his optimism was, psychopathic.
Right. That's funny.
So we were very, when we were working Renaissance festivals and fairs, we were very, very careful with money and very, very wise. And if I were to know the future, I would have said, spend $1.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're gonna have money in the future, so have fun.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine. But we didn't. It wasn't bad. So what I'm saying is, Teller's father was a commercial artist, and his mother worked retail at a department store. And my dad was a jail guard. My mother was mostly homemaker. So we were making as much money as our families were making in show business
Right.
by the time I was 21.
Crazy.
Teller and I never, if you talk to Houdini, Madonna, Howard Stern, Lady Gaga, Beyonce, Paul McCartney, every one of those people will, and I believe has, said that they should have been more successful. They should be more successful.
Wow.
Everyone. Paul McCartney has said multiple times the Beatles should have been more successful than they were.
They were
Howard Stern,
huge. They were huge.
But my point is, that's a different kind of person. Teller and I are more successful than we planned. Our life was laid out to we can probably do shows for 200 or 300 people a night, and this is the way we'll make our living and we'll live our life. And we'll do shows that we love, and that many people we can make a living. And it turned out we were off by almost an order of magnitude. It's about 2,000 people a night that like our show. So we are much more successful than we should have been. It was a weird little glitch
Sure.
that more people ended up liking us than really should have. And we're very happy with that, very content.
Yeah.
But it's not like, Paul McCartney actually thinks we should push a little more.
Wow.
If you talk to Paul, he would tell you the Beatles should have had a few more hits.
Wow. What do you think is your superpower back when you were 20 to 22 range to now? What's your superpower?
My superpower has always been knowing what I care about. That is, I tend to be able to do that. I'm not as good with it as some. I mean, I was told by someone who's very close to Bob Dylan that Bob Dylan's major skill is he always knows what he should be doing now. I should be painting now. Should be playing the guitar now. He never sits and goes, what should I do now? He always has something. I haven't quite got that, but I'm really good at not caring about things and then caring about the stuff I care about. And when I see people who don't have that skill, I mean, you can say, I don't know and I don't care.
All the time.
Hundreds of times a day. I say it, on the way in with Glenn, do you want to do this gig? Do you want to do that gig?
I don't care.
Whatever you
Yeah, whatever.
Good, fine. And when Teller, when Teller's setting up stuff, and Teller didn't even ask me. People are always shocked that he'll be doing the whole set design and laying stuff out. And,
Right.
And people will say, you're going to clear this with pen? He didn't care.
Didn't care.
And I'll write copy for something and it's never cleared with Teller. It just goes in, boom, boom. We know what we care about. And
What do you care about?
I care about art a lot. I care about ideas in shows. I care about writing a lot. I care about friendships, but I have no visual sense at all. I have no visual imagination. I can't close my eyes and picture anything.
Wow.
So I don't care about any sort of layout. I don't care about where I live or what it looks like, which allows my wife and children to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
But it's very easy for me. I see people who have an opinion on everything. Now, sometimes professionally, there have been times in my life when I have augmented our career and gotten press by doing pundit type stuff. Mm-hmm. There was one time I went on Bill Maher, and there was a whole section in the middle that they got on that they got off on a tangent, and I hadn't done the prep work, so I didn't know.
Right.
And on top of that, they were talking about something I didn't also care about. So I sat quietly on Bill Maher for 4 minutes. Now, you cannot realize how much you will be yelled at by everybody if you actually don't know and don't care in the middle of a television talk show.
Wow.
So now I try to have professionally opinions when I'd be put in that situation.
Sure.
If you, but I'm talking about in a bigger sense in my life, knowing what you care about is really important. I also think that I think reading is really important and harder to remember that's important because we have so many easier ways to get information that we sometimes forget that there's nothing more personal than reading because you have to decode, and coding that is really, really important. As we talked about, maybe we weren't even rolling then, but in terms of dealing with information, I try really hard not to let myself be exposed to information that I don't know is accurate and maybe too emotional.
That's good. I think it would affect your day or your hour. Or...
No, it's just that I don't want to see footage of people being shot and blown up, because if I read about that, I can put it in the right statistical thing. You know, I'm also trying really hard. I've been reading a lot and thinking a lot lately about how useless empathy is for helping other people.
How useless empathy is.
Empathy seems to be a really bad indicator because empathy tends to be familial and tribal. I care more about the people in this room than I care about people halfway around the globe. And there's a whole movement now that I'm getting interested in. I haven't done much with it, called effective altruism, which tries to find out how to take money and effort and really make it so that it alleviates the most suffering without being localized. I was seeing someone speaking the other day and bragging on the fact that their charity, we have a charity that every penny goes right to the Las Vegas area. And I'm going, because what do we care about Chad? No, but that kind of thing. And, you know, there's reasons for that because people that didn't care more about their families and other things didn't reproduce. And I obviously want to take care of my children, but I have to also remember that there's bigger ways to take care of that. So I'm thinking a lot lately about information and empathy and kindness.
It's interesting because I read this, I don't know if it's accurate, that you said that magic has a lot to do with empathy and seeing things through another person's eyes.
It's using the same words, but it's different than what I'm talking about right now. Teller is probably the best alive now, among the best that's ever lived, at being able to see the stage from the audience point of view and forget what he knows. It is a skill that is always important in art. If whether you're painting, whether you're doing music, you have to have the feeling of what is it like to be someone else hearing this. It has to be the opposite of solipsistic. You've got to see yourself outside. Really useful skill. But in magic,
when you're doing a performance, or
sure. You have to know. You have to have a theory of mind. When you're talking to somebody, you have to be able to, in order to say a sentence to you, I have to be able to imagine what you're like hearing and who you are. And if I were doing this interview with someone that English was a second language, it would change the entire interview.
Sure.
If I was doing this with somebody who was particularly, it matters who you're talking to. And to get a general, what's it like for a person to walk into the Penn and Teller Theater? What is that person like? Well, that is what you need for comedy or music or anything. But in magic, you've got a whole different thing because you know things that they will never know, that if they did know would change their experience profoundly.
Sure.
So Teller's able to say, no one's going to see your left hand go into your pocket there. And you go,
how do you know? How do you know?
And Teller's able to do that shift, that ego shift. But talking about empathy artistically and talking about empathy philanthropically are two very different things. Being able to, theory of mind used to be something we believed was specifically human. Now we find out that birds have it. It's possible that every animal has it. All the tests that we've had for humans can do this, other animals can't. Every one of them has fallen apart.
Right.
The mirror test fell apart. Theory of mind has fallen apart. We now find that crows when they are storing food, will store food differently if they know another crow is watching.
Wow,
Which
interesting.
is a profound theory of mine.
Wow, interesting.
Profound theory of mine, knowing, oh, they're going to remember this, so I got to trick them this way. Jesus Christ.
They're like the magicians of the wild.
Sure.
Yeah.
So now we've got that down to crows, all bets are off.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking about it, in the master class that we did, I talk a lot about empathy.
Wow, interesting.
Artistically, because being able to imagine yourself as someone else is
the key.
very important.
Yeah. I want to ask a couple final questions, but you've got this master class. Is it out right now? It's coming out?
Yeah. It's out.
It's out right now.
It's out and doing well, I might add.
And people can get that at masterclass.com.
Yeah.
And you're teaching about what?
How to do
Magic.
Yeah,
you're teaching about the setup. You're teaching about
Yeah,
everything.
we try to teach magic in
Persuasion.
general, although we do all the stuff you need to do to teach magic. We teach actual tricks that they can really perform.
So someone like me, who's not
If you
good at
know
magic.
nothing about it, you can go into it. But we also, in Masterclass let us do this, and it's really important. We also talk a lot about theory and what we've learned from magic.
That's cool.
And we've gotten, and I'm very gratified by this, we've gotten a lot of feedback from people who have no desire to learn magic, but really want to learn what they can learn from magic.
That's cool.
And I'm actually much more interested in the theory of magic than I am in tricks that fool people. Teller's one that can fool people.
That's cool.
As they say on our show, Fool Us.
Yeah.
Fool Us really means fool teller.
Full teller.
If you fool teller, you fool Penn Teller.
Are you fooled all the time? Or
No, but there have been, and we underline them, 5 or 6 examples in a 7-year run where Teller was fooled and I wasn't.
Really?
But for the most part, it's see the trick.
You're like, I got it.
I got this one. And there's ones where Teller's been dead wrong, and I've been right.
Wow.
But what I'm saying now is out of 300 performances, I'm talking about 5.
5. You're like, yes.
So let's keep where that percentage is. Yeah.
Wow. How many times have you guys been, I guess, wrong when you thought you had it figured out?
It's always more gray than that.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we got most of it right.
The number of times we've had the feeling that we wrote the show to get the feeling of, which is we do not have a clue. Have been just a handful of times, but man, that's an amazing feeling.
That's gotta feel amazing. How did they get me?
Yeah, no idea. Just totally got us.
Now afterwards, do you talk to the magicians
No, we don't afterwards talk to magicians.
They reveal.
The second it happens, they go to commercial and they run to us
and tell you.
It's done. They're just.
And you're like, whoa!
People always
They're so
say,
excited. Yeah.
So are they? They're really cagey afterwards, right? No. There was one exception to that, and he's a good friend of ours, Handsome Jack.
He still hasn't told you?
After he fooled us, he came up afterwards and went, so you wonder how I did that? We went, yeah. He went, fuck you. that was it. Then a few weeks later,
he revealed it. Yeah, that's great.
But he wanted to monkey with us. But most of the people run over.
That's cool.
Yo, you didn't know? Look at me, show this prop. It's built like this. We go, wow,
Right. That's cool. That's cool. So you got the master class. You got the Foolish Show, which I've watched a bunch of times. It's a lot of fun. You've got your podcast, which is called
Penn Sunday School.
Penn Sunday School, which is about you sharing about your beliefs and inspiration.
Who knows? It's about whatever pops in.
Train of thought. Yeah, exactly.
No, but we end up, we talk a lot about magic. We talk a lot about philosophy.
Yeah, that's cool.
We talk a lot about art. And then, we try to keep it funny.
Yeah, that's great. And you've got your show in Vegas.
Yeah.
And people can come there. It's at the Rio.
They can.
And it's every week, every weekend.
No. It is Saturday through Wednesday, every week. 250 shows a year. About 250,000 people see us there.
I still haven't seen it, so Dustin said he's gonna make sure I get to come sometime. So I'm excited.
He's got the muscle. He
excited
knows
to check
people.
it out.
You
Exactly.
know people, don't you? You can make it happen. You know a guy.
You know, guy. This is a question I ask at the end. It's called the 3 truths.
Okay.
3 truths. So I want you to imagine it's your last day performing. Let's say it's 20 years from now, 50 years, whenever you want it to be your last day.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. You're done. You've extended yourself, yeah. And imagine it's the whole world is watching through. They're in a huge theater. They're in other theaters in the world. They've turned on the TV, and they all get to watch you share your final performance. You did the show. You fooled people. You wowed people. You inspired people. You did what you do, and you get to leave 3 things you know to be true behind to the whole world watching or listening wherever they are. And these will be your 3 lessons to the world, your 3 truths, the things that you know to be true that you would want to leave behind as a message of inspiration. What would you say are your 3 truths?
There is no God, there's just us, take care of each other. People are good, things are getting better.
Powerful. I like that. And how can we find you online? Is there a way to connect with you?
No
online?
way, it's impossible. I have a completely invisible online. I've ghosted myself. Oh, actually, any search for me anywhere can find me. Right? I think it's pennandteller.com, right?
Okay,
Pennandteller.
And you guys are on social media.
Because
Penn Teller.
there's no ampersand in IP addresses.
Penn and Teller, yeah.
Yes, I'm on Twitter as @Penn Jillette, and my spelling of my name is wrong. Because my grandfather was an idiot. So he changed, everybody knows Gillette is spelled with a G, but my grandfather changed it. So it's now Jillette. So Penn, Penn with 2 N's, Jillette. I told a friend of mine that my grandfather changed the spelling from G to J, because he said that G is a G sound and J is a J sound. And my friend said, real genius, your grandfather, real genius.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, I want to acknowledge you for a moment, Penn, before I ask the final question, for your consistency, for showing up consistently as yourself. From what I know about you, from what I've seen over the years and all the stuff you've done, you're authentic to who you are and your beliefs, and you don't necessarily doubt yourself. And I think it's inspiring to see someone show up every day in partnership with someone else in a world of people that want to isolate themselves and have all the credit themselves. You show up as the, maybe seeming louder, more aggressive personality, but still in partnership to inspire so many people every single day in your work, in your performances, and I know you act, you write, your book, your messages, and I think it's really inspiring that you outperformed what you thought you were capable of.
Yeah, we did a lot better than we.
And you've been doing it for 44 years, and I'm excited to see what's in the future. My final question is, what's your definition of greatness?
Well, it's Thelonious Monk said, and forgive the gendered language, the genius is the one who is most like himself. Being most like yourself, or as Miles Davis said it, takes a long time to sound like you. I think that there's a certain kind of purity and greatness in just trying to be as honest about who you are as possible.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It's difficult.
Yeah, Ben, thank you, man. Appreciate
Thanks,
it, man.
man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.